Good morning, students. We are discussing chapter number 5, periodic classification of elements. Alright, and we have discussed so far about how classification of elements is extremely important. We know that there are 118 known elements today, 118 elements, out of which 94 are naturally occurring elements. Now, since there are so many elements and so many compounds and some mixtures are formed from all these elements, it's important to study them in detail. To study them in detail, you require some kind of classification so that the study becomes easy, because there are millions of compounds. Some elements are extremely reactive, some are less reactive. The more reactive ones, like oxygen and hydrogen, they form a lot of compounds, oxides and hydrides and many other compounds. So therefore, it's important to classify the elements, and therefore the study of elements becomes easier. Okay, so there was a need for classification. As more and more elements were discovered, the need for classification of elements became very obvious. Not only that, but it was all chaotic before classification. One could not know how do you study an element when you don't know its characteristic properties. Okay, so that's why you see this classification of elements becomes extremely important. And I gave you an example yesterday about how in a school or in a college or university there is some kind of classification where students are supposed to go in which classroom, what subject they are supposed to study, age groups, okay, and gender and things like that. All kinds of classifications are there which helps us to do things in a proper manner. Okay, there is less wastage of time, there is more efficiency and so on. So there was a need for classification of elements. Different scientists contributed in different ways. For example, the first one who contributed was Dobonier, okay, the German scientist, the German chemist Dobonier. He gave his law of triads. He classified elements into groups of 3, and he found that the middle element in a group of 3 elements had its atomic weight or atomic mass was the average of the mass of all the 3 elements. But he was able to give only 3 triads, okay, and there was limited use of his classification. But at the same time, it was a beginning, and therefore he must get credit for it. After Dobonier, Newlands, okay, he gave his law of octaves. The scientist chemist Newland, he gave his law of octaves, and according to the musical notes, the first and the 8th note are very similar, and in the same way, according to law of octaves, the first and 8th elements shared similar properties. So he classified 56 elements into octaves, into groups of 8. Okay, that is called Newland's law or law of octaves. But there were some problems there too. You see, he had to sort of put 2 elements together, like cobalt and nickel, in one particular slot, in order to the properties were dissimilar to the ones which are above, and there were lots of properties. Their atomic weights was very similar, and therefore a little bit of problem was encountered. After that, Dmitry Mendeleev, okay, one of the most important contributors to the development of the periodic table. In fact, he can almost be called the father of the modern periodic table, because it was his effort that led to the development of the modern periodic table that we have now. Okay, and he gave a law that is called Mendeleev's periodic law. Or what is that? That the properties of elements are the periodic functions of their atomic mass. He arranged about 63 elements which were known at his time into increasing order of atomic mass, and he grouped them into groups and periods. Okay, vertical columns were called periods, horizontal rows were called periods, and vertical columns were called groups. Okay, and still he had a few problems, because there the fundamental property used was atomic mass, and sometimes the atomic mass of 2 elements was very close together. Then there were isotopes, atoms having the same atoms of the same element having the same atomic mass, okay, same atomic number but different atomic mass. So those are called isotopes, and these isotopes, where would you fit them? So you see, certain problems arose because of that, and he decided that other scientists decided that there were certain things which were not quite right with Mendeleev's periodic table. And then there were later efforts also which led to the development of the modern periodic table. Okay, now look at the achievements of Mendeleev's periodic table. This is where we stopped yesterday. While developing the periodic table, there were a few instances where Mendeleev had to place an element with a slightly greater atomic mass before an element with a slightly lower atomic mass. because you see, his idea was to arrange atomic mass in increasing order. But sometimes when he did that, he found that elements with similar properties were not being grouped together. So then he had to change it around. Okay, when he changed it around, the properties were similar, because for him properties was most important. And here he found that if it just stuck to the golden rule of increasing atomic mass, it wasn't working out very well. Okay, for example, see here, cobalt atomic mass 58.9 appeared before nickel 58.7. Nickel should have come before cobalt, but he had to reverse that in this particular case because of the properties of nickel and cobalt. Further, Mendeleev left some gaps in his periodic table. Instead of looking upon these gaps as defects, Mendeleev boldly predicted the existence of some elements that had not been discovered at that time. Now that was important. This was one big step forward, because he could actually predict. He left slots or gaps in his periodic table to indicate that an element is missing out here. So it was not a fault of his periodic table, but it was rather an insight into future elements that could be discovered. So actually, it was a wonderful thing that Mendeleev did. Okay, it was a fantastic achievement, and in fact, some elements were discovered because of that. Okay, and he called them Eka. Eka is actually a Sanskrit word. Eka means one. Okay. Further, Mendeleev left some gaps in the periodic table. Instead of looking upon these gaps as defects, Mendeleev boldly predicted the existence of some elements that have not been discovered at the time. Mendeleev named them by prefixing, giving the name, okay, Sanskrit numeral Eka, Eka means one, to the name of preceding elements in the same group. For instance, scandium, gallium and germanium were later on they were discovered. Okay, but he had left gap for scandium, gallium and germanium. He left gaps for them, and he called them Eka aluminium, Eka silicon, like that. But it was, silicon was already discovered, aluminium was already discovered during Mendeleev's time. But he left gaps for them, so he called them Eka aluminium, Eka silicon. Discovered later have properties similar to Eka boron, Eka aluminium, Eka silicon. Eka means one. So there was a gap near boron, he called it Eka boron. There was a gap near aluminum, he called it Eka aluminum. There was a gap near silicon, he called it Eka silicon. And those elements later on discovered were germanium, gallium and silicon, or rather germanium and gallium. The properties of Eka aluminum predicted by Mendeleev and those of the element gallium was discovered later and replaced Eka aluminum are listed below. So he called it Eka aluminum. Okay, and later on it was discovered to be gallium. And the properties were similar to Eka aluminum, the gap which he had left there. See the properties of Eka aluminum and gallium. Eka aluminum, the properties that he predicted, because there is no such thing as Eka aluminum, but it was predicted by Mendeleev. And then Eka aluminum turned out to be gallium. So property 68, okay, that is what he predicted. Atomic mass of Eka aluminum would be 68, and it turned out to be 69.7. Formula of oxide E2O3, two atoms of the Eka aluminum, okay, and it also turned out to be the same Ga2O3, that is gallium oxide. Then formula of chloride would be ECl3, Eka aluminum chloride, ECl3, and it turned out to be the same gallium chloride, GaCl3. So there were remarkable resemblance between his predictions and what was later on discovered, and that was a huge achievement of Mendeleev. This provided convincing evidence of both the correctness and usefulness of Mendeleev's periodic table. Further, it was the extraordinary success of Mendeleev's prediction that led chemists not only to accept his periodic table but also recognize him as the originator of the concept on which it was based. Had Mendeleev had been alive today, you would have probably won the Nobel Prize for it in chemistry. It was such a fantastic discovery, rather a fantastic prediction or a fantastic formation. And he would have got a Nobel Prize for it because it was so important in chemistry. One of the basic fundamental things in chemistry is the periodic table. Noble gases like helium, neon, argon have been mentioned in many a context before this. These gases were later on discovered because they were very inert and present in extremely small concentrations in our atmosphere. Helium, neon, argon, krypton, xenon, they are called noble gases or inert gases. They are in the last group, group 0, or what is sometimes group 18, but it is sometimes referred to as group 0 also, because they have very low reactivity. Their outermost orbits are completely filled and they do not show any tendency to lose electrons or gain electrons, and that's why they are chemically inert. They are also called inert gases. One of the strengths of Mendeleev's periodic table was that when these gases were discovered, they could be placed in a new group without disturbing the existing order of elements. So that was a beautiful thing. You see, he had left gaps in it. So whenever a new element was discovered, it could fit in the gap. Similarly, when the inert gases were developed, when they were discovered, there was a whole row for them, a whole column called inert gases. So that was the brilliance of Mendeleev, and in a way he is the father of the modern periodic table. Now there were certain limitations also, okay, certain minus points, disadvantages or limitations of Mendeleev's classification. Electronic configuration of hydrogen. You see, hydrogen is unique because hydrogen is of course very reactive, just like oxygen, and it forms oxides and hydrides also, and is extremely reactive. Hydrogen has got it has one electron in the outermost shell, so its valency should be 1. Okay, if it has got one valence electron, then where should you put hydrogen? Should you put it in the first group along with lithium, sodium, potassium, and consider hydrogen as a metal, or should you keep it with halogens? Okay, because they also require, their valency is also 1. Okay, like chlorine, bromine, fluorine, iodine. So should you keep it as a non-metal on the right hand side or as a metal on the left hand side? And that was the problem with present-day Mendeleev, and he could not find a place for hydrogen. Okay, today hydrogen is placed on the left hand side of the periodic table, just above lithium and sodium and potassium, okay, in that column. But hydrogen is unique because it is so reactive that it reacts with other compounds also, just like halogens does. Electronic configuration of hydrogen resembles that of alkali metals like lithium, sodium, potassium. Like alkali metals, hydrogen combines with halogens, oxygen and sulfur to form compounds having similar formula as shown in the example here. See, compounds of hydrogen, hydrogen chloride, water, okay, then hydrogen sulfide. Similarly, compounds of sodium, sodium chloride, sodium oxide, sodium sulfide. Sodium is a metal, and hydrogen, should hydrogen be kept along with metals or with non-metals? On the other hand, just like halogens, halogens are fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, okay, they are non-metals. Hydrogen also exists as diatomic molecule. Diatomic means having two atoms in its molecule, H2. The molecular formula of hydrogen is H2. H2 means it is diatomic. Two atoms of hydrogen bound together by a covalent bond, okay, and they form what is called a single bond structure by sharing of electrons, and they form a molecule of hydrogen. That is called a diatomic molecule. So the question is, just like alkalis, Cl2, okay, chloride, a chlorine molecule is Cl2, it is diatomic. So what should you consider hydrogen as? As an alkali, as a metal, or as a non-metal? And combine with metals and non-metals to form covalent compounds. Okay. Now look at this activity. Looking at this resemblance to alkali metals like lithium, sodium, potassium, and to the halogen family like chlorine, bromine, iodine, try to assign hydrogen a correct position in the periodic table. You will find it difficult. Where do you put it? Okay, in group 1 or in group 17? That's the question. To which group and period should hydrogen be assigned? Okay, certainly no fixed position can be given to hydrogen in the periodic table. This is the first limitation of Mendeleev's periodic table. He could not assign a correct position to hydrogen in this table. Isotopes were later discovered, and Mendeleev also could not place isotopes anywhere. Okay, for example, chlorine. There are two isotopes of chlorine having atomic mass 35 and 37. Similarly, hydrogen, there were three isotopes. One is atomic number 1, okay, atomic mass 1, then 2 and 3. The one which is heavier, that is called heavy hydrogen, has got atomic number 1 and atomic mass 2. Similarly, there is tritium, another isotope of hydrogen. So you see there are many isotopes. Uranium has got 2 or 3 isotopes. Now where do you put the isotopes? Now what are isotopes? You see I have defined isotopes out here. See here, isotopes are atoms of the same element with different atomic masses. Atoms having the same atomic number. Hydrogen has got 3 isotopes, but the atomic number is the same, 1, 1, 1. But their atomic mass is different, 1, 2 and 3. Atoms having the same atomic number but different atomic mass are called isotopes. Alright? Then, so his first problem was with hydrogen, and the second problem was with isotopes. He could not find out a position for the isotopes. Let us recall that isotopes are an element of similar chemical properties but different atomic masses. Alright, consider the isotopes of chlorine. Chlorine 35 and chlorine 37. What is the atomic mass of chlorine? We know the chlorine has atomic number 17. Its atomic mass for different calculations in chemistry, we take it as 35.5. Okay, now why do we take it as 35.5? Because you see it's an average number. There is chlorine atomic mass 35 and chlorine atomic mass 37. Okay, and you might argue that if you add 35 plus 37, that comes to 72. Okay, half of 70 to 36, it should be 36. Why 35.5? Well, in practice it is found that if you take 1 mole of chlorine, okay, 1 mole of chlorine, you find a majority of them have got atomic mass 35. Okay, and very few have got atomic mass 37. So to take a simple average would not be right. So a weighted average is taken, and when a weighted average is taken, the atomic mass of chlorine for calculations is taken as 35.5. Okay, but again Mendeleev had a problem. He did not know where to fit the isotopes. Would you place them in different slots because their atomic masses are different, or would you place them in the same position because their chemical properties are the same? Okay, thus isotopes of all elements pose the challenge to Mendeleev's periodic law. Another problem was that the atomic masses do not increase in a regular manner in going from one element to the next. So it was not possible to predict how many elements could be discovered between two elements, especially when we consider the heavier elements. Like for example, you see, there is no fixed number. It could be, the atomic mass could be 23.4, 23.7, 28.1, 28.9. So in between how many elements are missing is difficult to predict. You see, you cannot have an element like 1.5 or 2.7. Okay, you cannot have that because we know that atomic number is the best way to classify elements. We'll come to that in the modern periodic table. Okay, now see this, I've left some arrows here. Okay, those are indicators of what is important. See, this isotopes of elements pose a challenge. That was the first limitation. Isotopes also increasing atomic mass. They could not predict how many elements can be predicted in the future, can be predicted for the future. Alright, now we come to the modern periodic table. Making order out of chaos, the modern periodic table. This is the most important part of the chapter. Okay. Now in 1913, Henry Moseley showed that the atomic number symbolized as Z of an element is a more fundamental property than its atomic mass. According to Mendeleev's periodic law was modified and atomic number was adapted as the basis of modern periodic table, and the modern periodic law can now be stated as follows. What is the modern periodic law? Okay, I'll just write a question. State the modern periodic law. Okay, what is the modern periodic law? You can see in inverted commas, properties of elements are the periodic functions of their atomic numbers. Okay, not atomic mass but atomic numbers. At the time of Mendeleev's classification was based on atomic masses, which are in decimal points also, and therefore there was a problem. But he did a wonderful job. Okay, he started this system of classification, and in that way you see his contribution is unforgettable. But the modern, after Henry Moseley discovered that atomic mass is more important, that is, you see, by that time in 1913 yet neutron was not discovered. Neutron was discovered in 1932 by Chadwick, and then you see, because of that, isotopes and why the atomic masses are different and all that came about. But when Henry Moseley showed that atomic number is a far better means of classification, the whole idea of classifying elements changed from atomic mass to atomic number. Okay, and the modern periodic law says that properties of elements are the periodic functions of the atomic number. Now let us recall that the atomic number gives us the number of protons. Okay, see, what is atomic number? How would you define atomic number? Atomic number is defined as the number of electrons and hence the number of protons in the atom. We know that protons carry positive charge. Protons are found in the nucleus, and within the nucleus, not all, but some atoms also have what is called neutron, and neutrons have no charge. Electrically they are neutral. So protons and neutrons are found in the nucleus, if neutrons are there, and electrons are found revolving in orbits or shells around the nucleus, just like a mini solar system. Now the problem is, you see, in an atom is electrically neutral. Why? Because the number of positive charges is equal to number of negative charges. In other words, the number of protons is equal to the number of electrons. So the number of protons in the nucleus gives us an idea of the number of electrons also. But the number of protons cannot change. You see, number of electrons can change. If an atom gives away an electron, it becomes electropositive. And it forms a positive ion. If an atom gains an electron, it becomes electronegative and becomes a negative ion. But protons cannot be exchanged, and therefore you see what happens is proton number is always stable, and hence atomic number can be defined as the number of protons in the nucleus of an atom. And that was a fundamental property, and that was used to classify elements in the modern periodic table. Okay, elements which, when arranged in order of increasing atomic number, led to the classification known as the modern periodic table. Prediction of properties of elements could be made with more accuracy, precision, when elements were arranged on the basis of increasing atomic numbers and not atomic weights or masses. Okay, how were the positions of cobalt and nickel resolved in the modern periodic table? Because that was a problem. Okay, cobalt and nickel, Roderier had a problem, Mendeleev had a problem. How were the position of the isotopes resolved in the modern periodic table? Is it possible to have an element with atomic number 1.5? No, because you can't have 1.5 protons. Either you can have 1 proton or you can have 2 protons, but you can't have 1.5 protons. And therefore this problem was overcome when atomic numbers were used. Where do you think should hydrogen be placed in the modern periodic table? Now if we go according to atomic numbers, then hydrogen atom has only 1 proton and 1 electron. So since it has got only 1 proton, it should be placed above lithium and sodium in the first period, in the first group. Okay, that we'll see now. Alright, now you see this is the modern periodic table. See, this is the modern periodic table, which is here. Excuse me. Okay, now if you look at it carefully, let's start from the, you see, many students don't take a proper look at the modern periodic table. There are lots of things you can simply learn by looking at it. Okay, so let's have a good look at this periodic table. First of all, look at the position with the red arrow. See here, hydrogen. Okay, on the left hand side, just below group number, you can see hydrogen. Now, why is hydrogen? You see, Mendeleev had a problem. Mendeleev did not know where to put hydrogen. Should he put it here, okay, in the first group, or rather first group, or should he put it in the 18th group, or rather 17th group? In the 17th group, they are all non-metals: fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, halogen group. Okay, what should he put it here above lithium? Okay, as a metal, is hydrogen a metal? So you see, this kind of problem presented to was before Mendeleev, but in the modern periodic table, since we use atomic numbers, this problem was solved, because now hydrogen could be safely put out here, safely. Why? Simply because it has got 1 proton, its atomic number is 1. So now if you look at the first group, you see, now what are these groups? Groups are basically vertical columns. Okay, these vertical columns are called groups. How many groups are there? That is the first group, second group. See the numbers here, group number. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. The last one is 18. This group, 18th group. Okay, this group, the 18th group is called this one. Okay, the 18th group is called noble gases. Noble gases or halogens. Okay, these are halogens. I'll just put it out here. Halogens. Sorry, these are noble gases, not halogens. Noble gases or inert gases. Noble gases or inert gases. Which one? This one. Okay, these are called noble gases or inert gases. But these, okay, let us take another one. See this, these are halogens. These, that is fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine. Okay, those are all very well known halogens. They are all non-metals. Okay, so actually when you go, if you look at it very carefully, Group number, there are 18. This 18th group is sometimes called zero group also. Okay, and from one, if you go towards the right hand side, from the left hand side, there are the group numbers are there. It goes on increasing. Okay, then the vertical columns are called groups, but horizontal rows are called periods. Now you can see these periods, just like you in 7 periods in a classroom. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, these are all periods. See here, these are periods. Now you can see that these periods, as you go down, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So the modern periodic table is classifies the elements into how many? 18 groups and 7 periods. That's the basic thing that many students don't even know this. Okay, there are 18 groups, 7 periods. You should be able to give a lot of information by simply looking at the table. Okay, now metals are always on this side. Okay, metals are always, again I'll just make sure that you understand this. Okay, metals are basically here. Okay, this is metals. Okay, non-metals and non-metals are all here on this side. Okay, and okay, now here if you look at it carefully, okay, if you look at it carefully now, you see this part. These are the metals and the metalloids. These are the metalloids. You see, they have got characteristic properties which are similar to metals and non-metals. Okay, boron, silicon, arsenic, germanium, all these are metalloids. Those are in slightly pink color, light pink color. They are all metalloids. They have got properties which are similar to metals and non-metals. But if you look at it carefully, okay, look at it carefully, metals are on the left hand side. Okay, non-metals are on the right hand side. In between them there are metalloids or semi-metals. They are also called semi-metals. And this zigzag line, the black zigzag line, differentiates or is partitioned the metals from the non-metals. Alright, the other thing that you must understand here also is that you see there are certain characteristic properties. Metals, non-metals, metalloids in between. Okay, groups, how many groups are there? 18 groups. The last group is also called the zero group sometimes. It has inert gases or noble gases, and metals are on this side. So metallic character means characteristics of certain elements to show metallic character. That metallic character goes on decreasing from left to right. As you go from left side to right hand side, the metallic character goes on decreasing and non-metallic character increases. Similarly, non-metallic character decreases as you go from right to left in this way. Okay, and again at the bottom, okay, you can see that at the bottom here, you see there are two series. They are called the rare earth series. Again, I'll just write it out here. The rare earth series. These are called rare earth series. Of metals. And they are called lanthanide and actinide series. Okay, these are called lanthanide and actinide series. See, lanthanides and actinide series. These two series of elements. But where do they start? Again, if you look at it carefully, see this is cesium. Okay, cesium is 58. Okay, you can see 58. Now, if you look at the table, you can see here 58 should be placed out there. So actually it is 58 starts from there, but they were different, having slightly different properties, because they have been placed below at a, and this is 71. Again, if you look at this is 71, where would 71 fit there? Okay, you can see here, okay, 71 here. So between 57 and 71, between hafnium and lanthanum, okay, that is lanthanum and hafnium. You are not expected to know the names of all elements. There are 180 known elements, 94 are naturally occurring elements. It is impossible for everyone to know the names of all. It's good if you can, that would be wonderful if you can do that, but you are not expected to know the names of all elements. But you can see where lanthanide series fits in. Okay, similarly there are actinide series. If you look at actinide series, this is 90. So if you want to place it in the periodic table, okay, this 90. Okay, that is thorium. Thorium would come after 89 out here. Okay, after 89. And then of course the last one, that is Lawrencium also would come here. Understood? So you can see lanthanide and actinide series are part of the periodic table, but they are called rare earth metals, and therefore they are placed separately just below the periodic table. Otherwise they fit into the periodic table also. Now of course there are certain characteristic properties of metals and non-metals which you can actually study from the periodic table itself. Okay, now just let us have a look out here. For example, if you look at the metals on this side, let us look at the metals first. Okay, here as you go down a series, as you go down a group, okay, from this way. So if I want to go down, say from here, okay, if I go from here this way downwards, okay, if I go downwards, then the atomic number you can see is going on increasing: 1, 3, 11, 19, 37, 55, 87. It means the number of shells or orbits goes on increasing. So atomic radius is going to increase. The atom is going to become bigger and bigger. Okay, but on the other hand, of course, all these red arrows can sometimes be very confusing. But if you go from this side, okay, from here to this side, okay, this way, then you will find that atomic radius actually decreases as you go from left to right. Atomic radius decreases because the number of electrons and protons goes on increasing, but valency shell is not increasing. The number of shells is the same, and therefore the attraction between the protons and electrons is very high, and it becomes slightly smaller. So atomic radius increases as you go from top to bottom in a group, and atomic radius decreases as you go from left to right. Similarly, metallic character decreases as you go from left to right, and non-metallic character decreases from right to left, that way. So that is why metals are on one side, non-metals are on the other side. Okay, so these are some basic properties also. Now let us just see a few things below that. As we can see, the modern periodic table takes care of three limitations of Mendeleev's periodic table: the anomalous, the abnormal position of hydrogen. Now there is no doubt where hydrogen should be. It should be above lithium. And what are the bases on which position of element in the modern periodic table depends? It depends upon its atomic number. So now there are no gaps, absolutely no gaps. And even if there were a gap, it would have a specific number, 8. Then after that you can only have 9. You can't have 8.5. Okay, so this was the basis of modern periodic table, atomic number, and it made it very, very clear. Alright, the position. But at the same time, you must also realize that Mendeleev had a huge contribution to Vernier, Newlands. They contributed, and that's why today we have the modern periodic table. So their contribution should never be ignored. Okay, position of elements in the modern periodic table. The modern periodic table has 18 vertical columns known as groups and 7 horizontal rows known as periods. Let us see what decides the placing of an element in a certain group or period. How do you place it? Whether, first of all, it's a metal or non-metal. Secondly, you look at its atomic number. Whatever the atomic number is, you have to place it there. Okay. Look at the group of one modern periodic table and name the elements: lithium, sodium, potassium. You start with hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, like that. Okay, and write the names of the elements. Write down the electronic configuration of the first 3 elements of group 1. What similarity do you find in the electronic configuration? How many valence electrons are present in these 3 elements? What you must understand here is that if you look at it carefully again, just say to give you an idea once again, let's have a look at the modern periodic table once again. You see, if you look at it carefully, see, this is hydrogen. This is what we are discussing: hydrogen, lithium, sodium, potassium, rubidium, and so on. If you go down, then atomic number is increasing from 1 to 3 to 11. Atomic shells are also increasing. Number of shells or orbits, more and more shells. It is becoming bigger and bigger, the atom. Okay, and the number of valence electrons, the number of electrons in the outermost orbit remains the same. Okay, in other words, all elements, okay, hydrogen, lithium, sodium, they have got 1 electron in the outermost shell, but the number of shells have increased. Number of shells increases, but the number of valence electrons remains the same. There are only 1 valence electron, and therefore the valency of this group, the first group, the valency of the first group is 1. What is valency? Valency can be defined as the number of electrons in the outermost shell of an atom. Here in the first group, all atoms have got the same valency because they got same number of valence electrons. Look at the second one. beryllium, magnesium, calcium, strontium, okay, barium, and radium. All of them, the number of valency shells will increase as you go from top to bottom. The atom will become bigger in radius, but the number of electrons in the outermost shell, that is the valency, will be the same, 2. It will have 2 electrons in the outermost orbit, and therefore the valency will be 2. And therefore, obviously, you can see that in this case the valency will be 3, valency will be 4, and so on. Okay, so this was a major point that had to be discussed out here. Okay, then you will find that all these elements contain the same number of valence electrons. Similarly, you will find that the elements present in any one group have the same number of valence electrons, 2, 3. Valency will go on increasing. The valency increases from left to right. For example, elements fluorine and chlorine belong to group 17. They have got 7 valence electrons. How many electrons do fluorine and chlorine have in their outermost orbit? They will have 7 electrons. These 7 electrons are called valence electrons, but its valency is not 7, because now it requires only 1 electron to complete the outermost orbit. So it will prefer to gain that electron, and that's why its electronegativity is high. Okay. Hence, we can say that groups in the periodic table signify an identical outer shell electron configuration. On the other hand, the number of shells increases as we go down the group. There is an anomaly, an abnormal behavior when it comes to the position of hydrogen, because it can be placed either in group 1 or group 17 in the periodic table. But I have written one point out here, because hydrogen contains only 1 valence electron. Why? If you again, let us look at this. You see, look at this, hydrogen is here. Now hydrogen contains only 1 valence electron. That means it has 1 electron, its valency is 1 in short. So here, if you look at this one, number 17, group 17, fluorine, chlorine, bromine, iodine, their valency is also 1. Okay, and therefore hydrogen can be placed at above fluorine, or it can be placed here. But why is it that hydrogen is placed here and not above fluorine? Simple reason is that hydrogen has 1 electron in its first and only orbit, whereas chlorine, fluorine, bromine, iodine, they have got 2 and 3 orbits. Okay, they have got 3 orbits. For what is electron configuration of chlorine? 17. So 2, 8 and 7. It has got 2 electrons in the first orbit. Hydrogen has got only 1. Then chlorine has got 8 electrons in the second orbit. Hydrogen doesn't have a second orbit. And finally, chlorine has got 7 electrons in the last orbit. Okay, hydrogen doesn't have a third orbit. So that is the difference between hydrogen and fluorine, chlorine, bromine, and that's why the best position for hydrogen is the first group and not the 17th group. Okay, right. Now, as we are discussing the position of the elements in the modern periodic table and the anomalous position of hydrogen. Then now, just a little more, position of elements in the modern periodic table. The modern periodic table has 18 columns, as we have just discussed, 17 rows. Okay, and okay, this part we have just discussed. Okay, on the other, number of shells increase as you go down the group. There is an anomaly when it comes to position of hydrogen, and I told you because of the number of electrons. Alright, now let us see activity 5.5. If you look at the modern periodic table, you will find that the elements lithium, beryllium, boron, carbon, nitrogen, oxygen, fluorine and neon are present in the second period. Write down the electronic period, remember, not group. Write down the electronic configurations, and you will see that in this case, when you go from left to right in the periodic table in the same period, this is the same period, then what would happen is that the number of shells will be the same. Number of shells will not increase, but the number of electrons in the outermost shell goes on increasing. That means the force of attraction between the nucleus and the electrons goes on increasing, and it makes the atom slightly smaller. Okay, it pulls in the outermost electrons because of electrostatic force of attraction. So atomic radii will decrease as we go from left to right in a period. Do these elements also contain the same number of valence electrons? They contain the same number of shells, that means the number of orbits are the same, but number of valence electrons goes on increasing. Do they contain the same number of orbits? Yes. You will find that these elements of second period do not have the same number of valence electrons, but they contain the same number of orbits or shells. You will also observe that the number of valence shell electrons increases by 1 unit. That is, the number of electrons in the outermost increases by 1 unit, as the atomic number increases by 1 unit on moving from left to right in a periodic table. Okay, in a given period. All right. Or we can say that atoms of different elements with the same number of occupied shells are placed in the same period. So sodium, magnesium, aluminum, silicon, phosphorus, sulfur and chlorine, they are all in the same period because they contain the same number of valency shells, but the number of valence electron goes on increasing. Okay, sodium has got one valence electron, magnesium has got two valence electrons, aluminum has three valence electrons, silicon has four valence electrons, and phosphorus has got five valence electrons, sulfur has got six, and so on, and chlorine has got 7 electrons in its outermost orbit. Sorry, belong to the third period of modern periodic table, since the electrons in the atoms of these elements are filled in K, L and M shells. The K shell is the first shell, L is the second one, M is the third, N is the fourth. Write the electron configuration of these elements and confirm the above statement. Each period marks a new electronic shell getting filled. Okay. How many elements are there in the first, second, third and fourth periods? Now if you look at it, how electrons are filled up, there is a formula for it, and this formula is here. The maximum number of electrons that can be accommodated in a shell depends on the formula 2n square, where n is the number of the orbit. So first orbit, n is equal to 1. 2 into 1 square, that is 2 electrons. Second orbit, n is equal to 2, so 8 electrons. Third orbit, fourth orbit and so on. But it doesn't conform to that. You can look at it here, see. Okay, K shell 2 electrons, L shell 8 electrons. Now third shell should be what? Third shell should be obviously 3 square is 9, 9 into 2 18, but the third one is 8. Then see repeated 18, 2, 8, 8, 18, 18, 32 and 32. Now if you stick to the formula 2n square, then why is it that there are 2 and then again 8 and 8 2 times, 18, 18 2 times, 32, 32 2 times? Because if the number of orbit increases, the number of electrons also should go on increasing. But here you see that it is not the case. There is a different reason which you will study in higher classes in chemistry, and that is called suborbits. There are orbits and suborbits. There are S type of orbits and P type of orbits. There are hybrid orbits and so on, which complicates the position of the electrons. Alright. The reason for this you will study in higher classes. The position of an element in the periodic table tells us about its chemical reactivity. As you have learned, the valence electrons determine the kind and number of bonds formed. It is the valence electron which is involved in bond formation. Can you now say why Mendel's choice of formula of compounds on the basis of unstable was a good one? He used oxides and hydrides, combination with oxygen and hydrogen, and that was a good choice because oxygen and hydrogen are extremely reactive. How would this lead to elements with similar chemical properties being placed in the same group? And this property of elements, the reactivity, the valency shell, the valence electron, is an extremely important property, and Mendeleev used it also. But his problem was that he used atomic mass, and that's where his problem started. But again, modern periodic table is there today because of Mendeleev's effort. Okay, and that's very important to understand. All right, now trends in the modern periodic table. This is the last section of this chapter, and I'll complete this video tomorrow. Okay, we should be able to finish this. Meanwhile, of course, I will send you a PDF, okay, of this question answers. And from this chapter, as far as the board exam is concerned, only the modern periodic table, Doberius and Newland's laws will not be asked. Mendeleev's periodic table will not be asked. Only the modern periodic table is there. So when we prepare for that, we prepare in a slightly different way. But right now I want to explain the whole chapter to you. Alright, that should be enough for today. Stay safe and continue working hard. Thank you. Have a nice day.